founder of BackCreekDaddy Productions, and this is our 7th interview for our interview segments, and we are back with part 2 of the Drogo interviews. And today we're going to talk a little bit about this book right here, which has got a lot of his art in it, and you can also find this book on Amazon, so don't be afraid to look it up. So with that said, we're going to hand it over here to Drogo and let him do some talking about what's in this book. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mr. Hess. I'd like to say thank you to the entire Hess family for showing support for local talent and being interested and active in the artistic community in the tri-state area here, and from music to visual art and video, of course, with your videos, with BackCreekDaddy Presents. And I'm really honored that you would interview me. This is my first interview of somebody interviewing me about my artwork, so I'm really honored about with that. So it's flattering, and it encourages me to do more. So I love it.
And that's a part of support, encouragement.
Yeah.
That's what we stress. Encourage people to move ahead with whatever talent they have.
Yeah.
And like I said, today we're going to talk a little bit about this, which you have do you have a page where people can go and see this online?
Sure.
Also?
Yes,
or
sir.
Pieces of your art?
Yep.
Your drawings?
Yep.
And
I just try to put my artwork out there into the public forum, because for me it's more about sharing with people, and I'm not that worried about copyright, because sometimes I'll put a copyright on something. I'll literally say this is copyrighted, but I don't worry about it too much, because I'm flattered if somebody is inspired by my art or takes pieces of it or even uses it. I like to be referenced, though. So I don't mind anybody using my artwork, and I guess that's part of Creative Commons license, is that you say anybody can use what I do, just please reference me, give me some credit.
that's great.
Thanks.
That's great. So tell us a little bit about this. What's in this book here?
Okay, I tried to, a lot of my life has been involved with drawing and artwork, and so I call it an artography instead of a biography, because it's sort of my life in the fantasy world, or in my imagination. So instead of it's early art to later art, basically.
Great.
And so I start with, I'm not afraid to show my most primitive. A lot of people are embarrassed of things they did as a child or younger, I think, because we feel like we've maybe improved ourselves since then or whatever. But I try not to be too embarrassed about my old artwork, because even though it's sloppy and it's
But it's a progressiveness.
Yeah, it shows it shows how far you've come. And another thing is, growing up in an art gallery, I would look at abstract art, and as a kid I would say, oh, I could do better than that. Why is that, why does that have a space on the wall? But then once I started studying the history of art, I realized a lot of the abstract painters could paint realistically. It's just through Impressionism, the style started to go more abstract. And I went, why is that? Why were they doing that? And I think it's because they were trying to show that anybody can do art. And I believe that anybody can express themselves artistically if you try to, if you want to. And what I like about abstract art is that it shows that you don't have to be Monet, you don't have to be Leonardo da Vinci, you don't have to be Michelangelo. You can be yourself and express yourself the best way you can, or the way that you want to, or whatever.
Right. So this book covers from your childhood.
Mm-hmm.
This starts out in your early days, and it comes up to the now, the present.
Yes.
Or close to it.
Right. And I tried to avoid putting copyrighted material in there, but a lot of it is so unavoidable in our culture today, because I grew up loving Superman and superheroes and He-Man and the Incredible Hulk and Mr. T.
So naturally, you're going to draw pictures of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And through and as the years go by, your own imagination, you develop your own characters?
Right, I would, when I think a lot of kids will create their own characters, maybe based on copyrighted characters, but that's one of the great things about inventing your own characters. Then, you don't have to worry about being sued by a corporation or something. So I think everybody should, not be afraid to say, I had an imaginary friend when I was a kid, or here's a character that I used to draw when I was a kid. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. I don't think. I think it's amazing. I mean,
and if more kids showed support and adults looking at their kids' drawings and paintings, if they encouraged them, you never know where that will take that child. They may grow up to be, a great artist or a cartoonist or whatever.
Yeah, and even if they don't, I think there's a self-confidence if you don't make them ashamed of their creativity. Because even if they forget about what they imagined or what they drew, they'll remember the feeling of you saying, hey, that was great. I like what you did. I think that feeling can stay psychologically in somebody, even if they
definitely.
take it into the business world or whatever.
I believe that. A lot of what you bestow upon a kid when they're small and they're maybe like this, drawing or painting,
yeah.
The wrong things maybe will discourage them, but if you encourage them, you never know. Even if it's not their artwork, it helps them in other ways to develop themselves as they grow. Encouraging words about everything.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. If you encourage a kid, even though they may not continue in what you were looking at that moment, it will still, hey, Dad or Mom really liked what I did, and they won't be as afraid to move on with maybe something else.
Right.
Another talent, maybe like painting or singing.
They'll take a risk.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what we try to stress to everyone out there.
Yeah.
And Drogo is a perfect example of how he has continued with his. And I believe from the last time talking to you, maybe some of your encouragement came from your dad.
Mm-hmm. Right. Family encouragement is important, and I think there is the reaction to, parents that are maybe, I don't know if too nice to their children. I don't know if you can be too nice to your children or to children, but there was a book, something like, I forget the name of it, but I think there's a theory out there that you should not reward your children every time, because that kids are given a medal for everything. I don't honestly agree with that, because I think not everything should be competitive. I think if you want to be competitive and that's what motivates you, okay. But I think personally I like it better when I can work with a team, and I never like being on the losing team. I mean, who does, right?
Right.
Who likes to lose? I don't know. But when you're competing, there's always going to be losers. Whereas when you're collaborating, there doesn't have to be losers. That's the way I look at it, and that's kind of nice. I mean, maybe utopian, but I mean, it happens, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think that you can overly encourage young people, with their talent, whether like we said, art, painting, whatever. Because I feel that the more you praise them on their drawing or whatever it may be,
Mm-hmm.
the more they're going to want to keep drawing or continue in that line.
I would think so.
And because, you know, hey, they like this, I'm going to keep doing it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and like I say, it could lead to who knows what.
Yeah.
And
And then,
if it doesn't lead somewhere to where it's maybe they become popular, but if it doesn't go in that direction, it may help them to look more positive on life.
right, and I think they'll be more willing to do the same for somebody else.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes, I agree.
Because if somebody's always saying, "Oh, that's terrible. You're such a bad artist,"
And most
well,
kids
they're going to want to
they're-
say that to somebody
yeah,
else.
and then they're going to stop.
And they're going to stop. They're going to shut
Yeah.
down, and then they're going to be critical.
Exactly.
Of other, that's what I.
Exactly.
And I mean, I try to catch
You
myself.
got some really good artwork here, so, you know, we can tell you were encouraged.
Thank you. Thank you. Right. I mean, I think our theory has evidence to support it. So I prefer black and white drawing just because it was always the easiest, and I could just take a pen and paper and just do, you know, express myself and then have done with that. And it's just easy. A lot of people, I think, consider artists, I think there might be a perception that artists are only painters, or that you have to be a painter to be an artist or something, but I always try to expand the definition.
You know, I don't know, maybe it's the wrong definition, but I call it sketch artist.
Okay.
Maybe it's the wrong term, but that's...
Well, Leonardo
Yeah.
da Vinci did sketches, and
Right,
they were pretty good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of black and white stuff in here that looks really good.
Thanks. So some of it, right, I differentiate a sketch as being sketchy, as in loose, and then when it's a finished drawing, the lines will be tighter. That's generally, but
So
sometimes it's
you go
combination.
from, you sketch,
Yeah,
then it goes to a drawing,
right, like,
and then
yeah,
sometimes possibly into a painting?
that's kind of how I think of it, yeah,
Cool.
yeah. So these are abstract, black and white, let's see, chalk, yeah, this is charcoal with chalk, and so these are silhouettes of models, three-dimensional architectural models that we did first year architecture. And then getting into my architecture, when I started college, I'll go back and talk about high school art, but in college I tried to combine architectural drafting with art, because my dad had always said that he was an artist and an architect, and that's where I was coming from. And the first college I went to was more technical, and I failed a couple classes, and and it was bad. But I pull all-nighters for weeks with everybody, and it was really hard on me. And then after 3 years, I went to a different college down in Georgia. The first one was in Rhode Island. Then when I went down to Georgia, and Savannah College of Art and Design was more liberal arts, and so that was, I felt like I was more at home there, because they encouraged you to combine art with drafting. You know, and it's interesting, right? There's often the division, drafting and then art. So.
And then like your work here in this book has also led you to writing stories.
Right.
Am I correct? Yeah.
Yeah, I've always liked to illustrate, because watching films as a kid, like you see all the Hollywood films, and you'd get the storybook, like Star Wars or whatever, and then I would try to make my own. I go, oh, that left out an image I really liked in the movie, so I draw that, and then make my own little book for it. Stuff like that. And I was going to say, with BackCreekDaddy, I wanted to encourage people to support local filmmaking, because I think instead of spending money like on a Hollywood film, I think it would be really cool if there was more of a market for local films, just like with local produce, anything local, local music.
Well, this book has a lot of interesting things in it, and at the end of this interview, I think with Drogo's permission, we're going to show at the end of the interview, we're going to just show a whole bunch of his drawings and paintings, just as an ending to
Yeah.
the interview with.
It's an 1800 frozen to death.
I saw something that you did for them some time back. Is that in this book?
Boudikas. I love their, it's almost like a punk rock song, Boudikas, about the robot that lived in ancient Rome. And I was inspired by that to try to do some fan artwork for them and I think I did a little
Now
bit.
you drew this also, right?
Yeah, Doctor Who and the Alien.
Now take a look at this. This looks so much like Tom Baker.
Thanks. I love Tom Baker so much as an actor that I really wanted to do him justice, and I wanted to get him, try to do the ideal Tom Baker. That's what I always try to do with somebody's portrait. Like if I were to draw your portrait, I would say, what is it, what is the ideal, like just the best aspects of the face, the best lighting, the best to show the three-dimensionality and the character of the person. I try.
Okay, here's something else. Now, are these pictures, that kind of looks like you.
Yeah.
Are these based on, other than yourself there, a certain party, or did you just imagine this person and this?
Right. Sometimes I imagine the portraits, and so I draw fictional portraits, but I also like to draw...
and this is what we're talking about.
I also
If you
like
can
to
see.
do portraits of real people, and since I didn't ask everybody, I didn't include their last names for the people that I did portraits of. But I find it a real challenge to try to draw from real life. But even when I do fantasy, I try to do it realistically, and sometimes I'll base, like with fiction writers, you write what you know, so sometimes it's based on, or sometimes it comes subconsciously through. I draw a fairy and I go, oh, that looks like somebody I know, but it was subconscious.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. And looking through the book, I'm coming on a page here that you said you had this hanging on your wall, and the sorcerers. Very excellent.
I like to draw women, first of all, because women are beautiful, of course, but also I think throughout history, I'm always surprised. I still don't understand why we don't know about, I mean, they would say, well, men had ownership of land, men have always been in control, but I still don't understand, as strong as women are, why we don't know more names historically of famous women. I mean, like I did the portrait of somebody I know and said Queen Boudica. So there's some historic famous women, or like the Statue of Liberty I love, because that's a woman, but a symbol of our country, that, a strong woman. I like that women can be equal in their own ways, with men.
I'm telling you, this book is very interesting. It's got some awesome, I mean, he's got creatures, knights, vampires, sorcerers. I mean, this is an awesome book of drawings. Houses, Gothic type pictures that are awesome.
I love BackCreekDaddy because of vampires. I've always loved vampires.
And dragons.
Yeah, I love dragons. Yeah.
So is there any particular thing in here you would like to?
Well, you said you liked the, I did a Red Riding Hood.
Yes, this is nice.
Thanks. And I was really glad you liked that one, because well, all of my drawings mean something. All of my art is personal to me, but that one means to me that sometimes I identify with, like, somebody in distress. So that's a Red Riding Hood is a woman in distress, and the wolves to me represent masculinity, and that she's being hounded by these voracious, aggressive creatures like.
Right. I mean, this picture tells a story. I mean, her hair's flying. The wolves are growling. The hair standing up on the wolf's back. I mean, if you look at this picture, there's a lot of detail here.
Also, I identify with the heroine because I've been chased by wild dogs and like a pack of wild dogs, like running around the town, and also I've been attacked by dogs, so I understand the feeling of having to defend yourself.
So, like I said, is there any particular picture here that you are extra fond of? That, how about,
Okay.
show us what you
Well,
really feel good about.
Talk about the recent ones. This is a Army buddy of mine that's been to Afghanistan fighting the Taliban over there, and I did a portrait of him, and as though, we grew up with these cartoons by Filmation, like He-Man and other, Thundercats, G.I. Joe, that type of thing, and I wanted to, I've never tried to draw exactly like them, so now that I have the opportunity to, I've been trying to emulate how they animated, exactly the line, in other words, the line thicknesses, what features on a face they show, in other words, how many lines, how many skin tones do you show, that type of stuff. And so what I use, the way that they did it, I think, I know that Ralph Bakshi did it when he did his Lord of the Rings movie. It was called rotoscoping. And so you take a photograph or you take a video, film image, and then you paint over it. And they used to use paint.
Oh, okay.
But now with the computer, you're digitally painting.
Cool.
Yeah.
Now you have a project in the works right now. Would you like to elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. Hopper is a bunny rabbit that lived 1 million years ago, and it's a play off the word Harper's Ferry. My father used to pronounce it Hoppers because he was from New England, and in West Virginia they say furry, as in fairy. So it's sort of a New England combined with Southern.
That's pretty cool how you did that. How did you come up with that?
Thanks.
Right.
And then bunny rabbits. I mean, who doesn't love bunnies? I don't know. I mean, even if you're into violence, like there's the killer bunny from Monty Python. So where he attacks the knights in the quest for the Holy Grail. You think it's a cute little bunny, and then or Bunnicula, the vampire bunny. But I've always, bunnies are so cute and harmless, and so what I try to do is, it's an analogy. It's anthropomorphic, so it's like Peter Rabbit. It's in the tradition of Wind in the Willows, so all the classics that most of us know and grew up with, and even Aesop's fables, where you're taking an animal and you're embodying it with human attributes. So sometimes they'll wear clothing, sometimes not, but usually they'll have a humanistic personality. Mm-hmm. And so that's a way of telling, for me, it's a way of telling a human social story or a psychological story through the animals' interactions. But I wanted to take humans out of it because my father was mayor of Harper's Ferry, and their politics, they say never mention in polite company what religion, politics, and anyway, politics is something you're not supposed to talk about, right?
Yeah.
So, and so the psychology of being trying to represent people in a public office, you're like a sacrificial lamb in many ways, because everybody's going to come to you with their problems. Mm-hmm. And so in order to deal with that, I would try to tell Dad, don't take it personally, but inevitably you take it personally because you're the person in that position. So it's almost inevitable something's going to, some criticism is going to seep in. So what I'm trying to do by writing this after my father died is to try to say, what I kept trying to tell him is that, and I try to tell myself, is try not to get so worked up about things. So it's this rabbit that, before human beings, comes and it starts exploring around town before there's a town, Well, he loves it because there's lush greenery, so he can just pig out, he can just eat all he wants, and he starts naming things. He thinks he's like Christopher Columbus, the first to discover the New World, right? No.
Right.
Well, whoops, there was somebody there before. So in Hopper's case, there was already rats, there was already birds, there was already creatures there. He didn't know that. So he thought, oh, I'm the first one here. Well, then he starts meeting the other creatures. And then I try to tie politics in by saying, so some get worried about it. So they go, oh, do you know so-and-so's doing this and so-and-so's doing that? And they go, this is horrible. Things have never been this bad. And I hear that all the time in town, like, oh, everything's going to hell. And you hear that not just you hear that at a national level, but you also hear it at a state level, and then you hear it at a local level. If you're into local politics, you hear, oh, that what they're doing there is just the worst thing ever. I mean, I've heard that over and over with different projects, and you go, so after a while I started going, is this really the worst? I thought that was the worst thing. Okay, so I try to take a Zen approach, and old Hopper's just kind of like, you know what, my perspective is, he's like, just look. So they're sitting on a hillside, and one animal's going, we need to come up with a new vision for the town, for Hopper's Ferry, We need to come up with a new vision because the old one's bad now, or because they feel disenfranchised by the people that were there before or whatever. So I say, okay, well here's my perspective. Take a look at the view. So you look at nature, you go, instead of worrying about the social problems, you go, wait a minute, do we like where we're living? So like the idea is being, wherever you are, do you like where you're living? Like the landscape, what do you like about it? Why are you there? So like if you live in Israel, I'm like, do you like living in a desert? If not, move. Or like, do you like, if you like the desert, that's great. Try to live in harmony with other things there. If you like living in the country, try to enjoy that. If you're from the city and you feel comfortable in the city, try to take comfort in that.
And this, we're going to see this through the rabbit's eyes.
Yeah, and so by the time you die, so it's sort of like by the time you die, hopefully you won't die from a heart attack because you're too worried about all the problems. Because there's always going to be problems. There's going to be chaos, entropy, part of nature, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so if that's a given, so how can we try to be more happy and more successful in different ways? Not always financially, but how can we be more content? And you're never going to be perfectly happy. Like even Mother Teresa had down days, So it's
It sounds like it's going to be a very interesting book.
Oh.
And it's also not just a story, it's picture illustrated.
Right, it's fun. So now I'm doing full color illustrations in just like Beatrix Potter did for Peter Rabbit. That type of thing, where people love to see color images, and when you're reading to children, to be able to show the image, it adds to the imagination.
And once this book is finished, it'll also be on Amazon?
Yes.
To be purchased?
So it's a lot of fun, and it's my attempt to do a children's book to try to abstract some of these complex ideas, the complexity.
Right, and I understand what you're trying to say, and you can see some pictures and sketches of the rabbit, I believe, on, where can they see this?
You can,
Facebook?
Yeah, search Hopper's Furry, and it's a pun, so.
Well,
have fun with it.
Is there any places that people that's just combing through either BackCreekDaddy's page or looking up your name, is there any locations they can click on to find about different things that you're involved in and different books and things? If there is, can you tell the audience there so they can know where to find some of this information?
Okay. Like a specific address or something?
If you have a web address or...
like I said before, the best way...
How about or like YouTube, you have some things on there, I believe.
Right.
So, do you have your own channel? How would they find it? What would they
Sure.
punch up if they want to see some of this,
Sure.
some of your past work?
I try
Like
to...
on YouTube, what would they punch up, Drogo or?
Yeah, Drogo. I try to include tags that people would search for. So if they go, I know Walton Stowell, I'd like to see what he did. So you can search in Google.
And those of you who doesn't know Drogo, that's his real name. And
Like Mark Twain was Samuel Clemens. Same person.
right, so you can look up either name to find things. They're under both. I believe your book is under, yeah, Walton.
Yeah. So,
Well, everybody, you need to check this out if you're into art and sketches, and you need to check this out and check out his progress on his book that he's into right now. It sounds like it's going to really be good. I have seen some, a little bit on it, some pictures, read some of the storyline. It really sounds interesting and fun. And
thank you.
Drogo's not only into sketches, like I said, he's into writing stories. He's got books out there on Amazon, different books about different things. And he's also got a book on Harper's Ferry, I believe, Homes of Harper's Ferry.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, the man has a lot of talent in a lot of different areas. He has not restricted himself.
Thank you.
And it's awesome. And we're just happy to have him. So we're going to end this interview, and when we take our mugs off of here, you're going to see some pictures of his work that'll follow us. So thanks, Drogo, for a great interview. This was part 2 of our interview, and I hope everybody has a good time watching it.
Thank you very much.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate it.
You're welcome.
It's an honor.
Searching, gonna